Lunatics have taken over the Asylum.
The 1970s, there's only one word that I can describe this decade for the world of cinema. Balls. We were brought upon films that we were just blessed and disguised with. So many films that I can literally name right now off the top of my head that we were just blessed with. However, if I name those films, I will be here all day. But there's this one film in particular that I just want to talk about that not only had balls, but if you want to talk about a perfect movie that just had an outstanding cast, the incredible storytelling, characters in a setting that you truly believed in and was believable, a whole entire definition, symbolism that just stuck out and just made you realize exactly that this is the type of shit that can go on in reality. A film that you can't even explain in words that just swept the academies. Let me go over some of the academies that this particular film, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, has swept. The Golden Globes, Best New Star, Best Motion Picture, Best Actor in a Leading Role, the BAFTAs, Best Film, Best Actor, the Academy Award, the Oscars, Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Directing, Best Writing, Best Picture. Here are the other candidates that were nominated for Best Picture. You had Barry Lyndon, Dog Day Afternoon, Jaws, Nashville, and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. What was the film that swept away and took home a shitload of Academy Awards throughout the Golden Globes, the BAFTAs, the Academy itself? This film alone. This fucking film. Now, out of all the Academy Awards, the one that this one should have took home was Brad Dourif for Best Supporting Actor. That went to George Burns in The Sunshine Boys. I don't really agree with that, but each our own. But this fucking movie literally swept the goddamn awards. It literally turned a fucking prostitute in Las Vegas and turned her into a goddamn Catholic child. It literally set your grandmother fucking 50 years back to when she was in her youth again. This made a fucking pimp read the Bible for the first time and turn his life around from being a pimp to a priest. This movie just slapped you across the face with reality and just turned your whole world around with storytelling, setting, characters, and just performances alone that just changed your whole entire dimension of how you look at film in general. I mean, look at all the fucking performances that we had in this film. You had Jack Nicholson, Louise Fletcher, Will Sampson, William Redford, Brad Dourif, Sidney Lasik, Christopher Lloyd, Danny DeVito, Vincent Schiavelli, William Duell. Holy fuck! And what an incredible cast! I mean, you had your main performances with Jack Nicholson and Louise Fletcher, but every single supporting actor that we had in this film had a prominent role. This movie alone made you look at how mental illness works. Because the thing is that when you watch this film, each particular individual in this movie had a mental illness that you not only understood right there, but realized that it was a character study for every single person, from how they were speaking, how they were behaving, how they were interacting with one another, their mannerisms, their personalities. Just from watching them and how they were able to come off, it was just an investing story alone. How one person is a psychopath, mentally deranged, has to be institutionalized, to another one to where they just chose to put themselves in this establishment to where they can seek help that they need in order to feel safe and mentally stable to go back out into reality. You had one guy who was suspecting his wife. You had one person who was has a stuttering problem, nervous as a son of a bitch, and being absolutely manipulated, which I will talk about momentarily. You have one guy who was just, how you could say, had a childlike manner to a minor extent. You had two guys who were just close attached with one another that just felt comfortable with each other. You had one guy who was just deranged, and then you had the big guy who just stood there, mind his own business, and assumed that he was deaf and dumb. Then you had the main guy who was just unstable and you can say a menace to society, rebellious as all can be, and just found himself to be getting into a shitload of trouble. Prison couldn't do it. Doing community service wouldn't do it. So what was the best thing to put fucking Mac in? A goddamn mental institution to where he'll be supervised until till the nurses, the doctors, practitioners, whatever it is, the pediatrics tell him that he is stable enough to be released into society once again to give himself a piece of pussy again. Shit, if you can't go to the pussy, bring the pussy to you. Which did happen. So, there's one thing I want to talk about with this film, since I did mention that there was one particular actor, one particular individual who was suffering from stuttering and was nervous as a son of a bitch and was being manipulated. That was Brad Duruff as Billy Bibbett, which comes to me again that he should have won for Best Supporting Actor, but like I said, George Burns won that one for the Sunshine Boys, but I digress there. So, Billy Bibbett, young kid, should be out cruising in a car, should be someone who is just out there living his life, having a girlfriend, getting married, having a job, and all that. This having everything that a young person should be, going out there and just having a good time, but instead he had an abusive fucking mother who just treated him like shit to where it just made him a wreck, putting him into this state that he just can't control himself whatsoever. Billy Bibbett alone, and seeing how Nurse Ratched interacted with Billy, and just seeing how she just looks at him, how she just has those evil glances in her eyes, manipulating him, putting him down to a steep level to where if he does something wrong, she is going to tell his mother. She constantly threatens him with this assumption that she's willing to do to poor Billy. To where it just drives him mad to where he's just had to do the unthinkable. Nurse Ratched alone, Louise Fletcher. Now, from what I learned is that in the behind the scenes, Louise Fletcher was actually upset and mad at how everybody was able to perform the character, having a good time, and yet she had to be stuck in this particular role of playing this evil, sadistic, manipulative fucking cunt of a character, just observing everybody, being in charge, and just being so condescending and such a piece of shit to everybody. Putting them down under her feet, making everybody kiss her fucking shoes. But from what I heard, Louise Fletcher, from what I recently learned is that after when the movie came out, is that she couldn't even watch the movie for years because of her particular character. See, that is one thing I love when watching movies, is that when there is a particular character, whether they're portrayed as a babyface or a heel, when they do a performance that's so fucking good to where you don't see the actor or actress, you see the character that they are portraying. Like, they wipe away their entire personality that they have outside of cinema, and they just put everything on the line to make sure that this particular performance is 110% of what they are given, to make sure that what you are watching is the character, the personality, the believability of what you want to see when you're watching a film. It is right there. And Louise Fletcher gave one of the most outstanding performances to any character that you just hate. For her to even hate her own character, that says a lot of how goddamn good the performance was. Seriously, if I was in a movie right now and I was portraying as a bad guy to where the performance was so good to where I can't even stand myself in this film, I would honestly give myself a pat on the back for that because you went in there and you did your job. Jack Nicholson, this guy, we all know who Jack Nicholson is. He's playing some of the most well-known films out there. He can deliver a performance. He can play a psychopath, no problem. But this wasn't much of a psychopathic role. It was someone who was just rebellious and just didn't give a fuck about the law or breaking it. But, like I said, he was brought into the situation to where he was told that we will let you go once you are stable. Sure, when Nicholson arrived, he was making fun of everybody. He didn't know what was going on. He thought it was all one big joke. But once he started to get all the friends that he had, where he was starting to become buddies with literally everybody, and they all started to he started to support one another, thinking that you guys are not fucking crazy. You're not lunatics. You just have disadvantages that you can't control at all. But you wanted to come in here to get some help. You're not crazies. You're not psychopaths. You're human being too, but with just disadvantages. And McMurphy ended up becoming the hero, the leader, the role model that all these guys needed in their lives to make them realize that they are cared about. Since Nurse Rat shit was literally being a fucking abusive mother to all of them, McMurphy came in. He became the leader for everybody. Now, sure, McMurphy had his own rules and everything, but he wanted the guys to have freedom, have themselves some sort of fun, some enjoyment in their lives. If it's like fucking doing a little gambling on the side, if it's doing a little, make an imaginary baseball game, the group counseling itself, he wanted the guys to make them feel loved and respected. No matter how manipulative and how fucking abusive Nurse Ratched will be, McMurphy was the only one who had the fucking balls who just brought those guys together and literally made them all supportive, not only within each other, but made them realize that they are cared about. This film really looks at mental illness a lot and how truly important it is to give recognition to such disadvantages, to such things that people can't handle, people that have to be on medication for, people that have to get counseling or see a therapist, or to where they can't be around society and they have to be in an environment until they are stable enough. Mental illness is no fucking joke at all. It's something that needs to get looked at more and more and more, and this film truly does reflect on that. It's amazing how this film was just able to really make the whole awareness of mental illness just a prominent thing. Storytelling beyond. If you could pick any scene alone with interactions with the whole group counseling to where they end up throwing a fit, and you see the believability to where the fucking guards come in and start tackling on the ground to where shock therapy will be in play. Oh my god. You really feel like you're watching a real life scenario being portrayed right here, to where you're seeing a particular patient having a breakdown, and to where they'll have to be on a heavy dose of medication, get counseling, or even shock therapy, to where if all goes worse, they'll have to get a lobotomy. There was a lot of abusive times during this thing. They just couldn't necessarily know how to handle precautions or deal with a person's disadvantages. However, the set alone, it wasn't in a fucking warehouse. It was in an actual mental institution. And just for the whole entire set alone to be taking place in a real life environment, bringing in more believability with this film, that just sets the charts on how they were able to take all the actors and actresses and put them in this environment and make them portray the real life scenario. Fucking strike a genius. Just absolute geniusness. But There is one thing in this film that if you want to talk about a development in a relationship between two people, it was with Randall McMurphy and Chief. Jack Nicholson and Will Sampson. Now, we all know that Big Chief was assumed as deaf and dumb. He stood there in the back minding his own business with a broomstick, thinking like he's the fucking Sandman who where he comes out with his beard, cane, cigarette, and just starts wailing everybody. But instead of the cigarette and the beer, he just got his broomstick and will start wailing at anybody if anybody's gonna fucking mess with him. But the whole connection between Chief and McMurphy is just something that is just touching alone. How they can just relate with one another, being put into a place to where they are being assumed for things that they don't have, but in reality, they're just there because how society is looking at them, and they had no choice but to be there. To talk about wanting to escape, go to Canada, how they want to get out and just be together and just live off like human beings, not as a fucking, not as like a fucking lunatic, but would be looked upon as a human being. Just the plan alone, how to fucking wipe away from being around Nurse Ratched. It's just outstanding with how those two were able to connect. From beginning to end, this whole movie is just something else. You had some funny moments, you had some touching moments, you had some sad moments, you had angry moments. This movie made you fucking feel. This movie literally made you feel every single person's mood in that fucking room. You got the fucking sinister hate from Nurse Ratched. You had the hope and rebellious charm that Murphy had. You had the quiet nature that Big Chief had. You had the innocence that Billy Bibbett had. The fucking child mindset of Cheswick. The one guy who was all upset about his wife, I forgot what his name was, but his mood too. You literally had so many moods throughout this whole entire film that you just felt right then and there. Every single character has a personality, has a study, has a backstory, and you just want to learn about every single one of their personalities, of who they are, what their backstories, and why they're there. And sure enough, you do learn that. This movie is a true work of art. It is a masterpiece. One of those films that I will throw in there. One of the greatest of all times from the 70s. One of the greatest films in general. This film is just, it deserved all the awards that it was given. And sure enough, it is a rating that is a 6 out of 5 scale. I'm done talking. So, ladies and gentlemen, please let me know down below your thoughts about One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, your thoughts about this film, and if you had to sum up this movie in a simple sentence, what would you say? So, with that being said, ciao for now.